Hey, what's up guys? So in today's video, I'm gonna be tattooing a Nipsey Hussle on the bro's hand. So yeah, we do that Nipsey Hussle portrait in black and gray realism. And there was a little bit of a muck up because he had to leave a little bit earlier than intended. So we actually ended up finishing it up on the next day. So it's pretty sore for him, but he actually sat well. We managed to smash it out. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoy the video. And it would be great if you guys could share maybe a screenshot and post that up to your Instagram, tag me, and then I can repost that of you guys watching this video. But I hope that you guys enjoy the video. Let's get into it.
Alright guys, so just starting off my stencil placing process, using some of that metrix stencil solution there, and I'm using still the inkjet styled printer, where you replace the ink with that stencil product and you can print out these quite nice realistic references. I do think it is a game changer for tattooing realism. It really helps that stencil process, and like I've said in previous videos, my main reason is it gets me on the skin about 40 minutes faster. So all my clients get that extra 40 minutes in their day session now. I do use a little bit of a alcohol wipe to help these stencils really push onto the skin and get a little bit more of that stencil pigment onto the skin and off that stencil paper there as well. Without the alcohol wipe, the stencils can appear quite light. I do think there was one issue. It's not so much with the stencil, but maybe more with the hand and the placement. You can see that beard area is showing no detail. But that's not too much of a problem because I can see detail in my reference, so I just need to recreate that and I guess make that up when we get to these areas. Now I'm just drying that stencil a little bit, getting some of that excess off. Usually it's a step I don't have to take, but some of those areas were looking a little bit wet, and for the hand I really want that stencil to hold as good as it can. So you can see today I'm using the Bishop Shader Advanced. I wonder if this is the first YouTube video where I'm using this machine. I think it is, apart from that little vlog that I dropped just yesterday. And for my setup during this tattoo, I am using a 7-round shader. Well, that's what I'm using now. I also have a 7-round liner extra tight, a 9 curved mag, a 13 curve mag, and a 23 curve mag. So that's pretty much my standard realism setup. It's a setup that I'm very comfortable with, and I really don't need to look any further for achieving anything else in my tattooing or the style that I have. So I'm really starting with locking in some of the information here in the stencil for the neck area, getting through Nipsey Hussle's tattoos here, mapping all of this in. That's kind of, you know, like, I do have processes and systems that I think help me achieve a really productive tattoo session. So for this area, just getting straight into locking in all this information, and then later on you'll see I'll start to kind of block in the values with my smaller mag, and then ending up in my larger mags where then I'm focusing on the values that are lying on the skin and all the shadows on the neck and stuff like that. So I'm not taking on everything at once. I'm just moving through, breaking this down into a few simple steps, because with areas like this in tattoos, as you know, the portrait itself is going to take a long amount of time, and I want to prioritize all of my best tattooing ability and my most productive hours of this day. I want to really jump into tattooing this portrait as fast as possible to ensure the best result in the portrait. So that comes by just being really efficient in these early stages. Especially I have to do these tattoos, the neck, and then the beard. As we all know, even tattooing these beards can take hours, and I think this one does. So just being aware of these problems that are coming up and making sure that I'm setting myself up for a really productive day. So now you can see I'm onto that 9 curved mag. Now, usually I think I would use something bigger, but since we're on the fingers here, I do want something a little bit punchier, because I am aware that fingers can heal a little bit worse, especially for the bro here. He is a builder, so I do want to take these appropriate steps on making sure that the needles that I'm using in the lower part of this portrait, like the neck and the beard, I want it to be really punchy, something that has a high chance of staying in the skin. So you can see, yeah, using this 9 curve mag to pack in these kind of approximate values at the moment. Just starting off with a mid-tone, something that is everywhere, so I can really not focus on the value too much, and then I can go through with something darker and put that in where I need to. It's something that I've really been thinking about lately. It's a step that I do in my painting, and I've been talking to my Tattoo Academy members about it a lot, is finding the approximate value. It allows for like a fast pace. It's like when you start painting, you just want to get paint on the canvas. It's really no different to the tattoo here. So finding an approximate value that you find is everywhere. It's not your lightest in the area, it's not your darkest. So it's kind of that averaging value that you can really be quite almost lazy with, and then go through and perfect the gradient, refine the form a little bit more with your darker values and things like that coming up. But one of the best things about art is really like no wrong way of doing it. It doesn't matter what medium you're doing. 100 artists have 100 different techniques and their processes or lack of processes. But it's really all of these decisions that push through with their work that leads to their results. Good or bad, it's all art. And now we're moving on to using my 13 curve mag. So like we've talked about, kind of working up through those needles and through the process and through my values. You know, I do kind of like to start with that dark to light. So there's process 1, and also starting from in this spot, the smaller needles, and working my way up, because I'm going from the tighter stuff, which is the tattoos, some of this early beard detail, and then getting into my larger planes, the information that's behind all of the tattoos, the neck shadows and stuff like that, like I mentioned earlier. So now we're starting some of this early work on the beard. You can see stencil wise, I'm not getting a lot of information from my stencil at this point because there's not a lot there. It's all just one large purple block, which is great. But like I said earlier, I have all of this information that's in my iPad, and you know, there's really just 3 stages to this beard. Or 3, I guess, texture differences and things like that. So we have this like bordering area, kind of where I'm working now, which is included in the top part. So that's like the lighter stuff, you know. It's not the dense middle, very dark part of the beard. We're still seeing a lot of these negative flicks and stuff like that, and areas where the skin is behind it. And then on to our second area is the denser block. You know, there is still a few individual hairs, but you can see I'm working through a bit of this with the 9 curved mag. And then for the last stage is where it's really high on the face, where that hair is less dense and really starting to move up the face a little bit more, and we can see a lot of that skin or a lighter value behind it. So there's really just, I need to be aware of these kind of, I guess, 3 different textures, and yeah, work on these transitioning all throughout the beard, and then it will just go very smoothly. So I do map in a little bit of that information with my 7 round shader, just because it is a very punchy needle, and you can see here I'm just creating a rough beard look. Now you can see I randomly jumped up quite a bit from where I was working, about a centimeter or 2, and that is because there was a little bit of detail in my stencil. Now rather than trying to create an imaginary texture and work my way up to that, I might as well start where there is information in my stencil. So I jump up to this part where I can see the stencil is giving me some information, rather than working up and rubbing this information out. I just decide to jump straight up to that, and then I can work outward from this information. I can just start like duplicating the information that the stencil is giving me and working out and down from that into an area where there was no information from the stencil. So that's a really handy trick as well. If ever you find you've rubbed out a lot of your stencil, just move up to somewhere where you can see, and now all you have to do is fill that in between, that blank little space, you know, in between your tattooing. And that's exactly what I'm doing here now, just connecting these two areas. So that part where I had jumped up in the stencil, I'm now connecting that to the lower part that was a little bit more completed. Now I go through and making sure that this negative space that I'm leaving, these small little hair-like areas, are all the right size, you know. So I'll just randomly kind of create a texture, and then I'll kind of look back a little bit and make sure that the negative space isn't too big, implying that the hair is really like unrealistically thick or anything like that, kind of weird, you know. Making sure that it's looking normal, nice and realistic. And I'm not focusing too much on a like random level of saturation. I'm kind of thinking very like black and white high contrast at this point, just to be nice and productive. So I'm only focusing on what's solid black. Later on, I can get a lighter value and saturate these areas like appropriately, because it's not really all like left white highlight like that. A lot of it is kind of saturated with a mid-tone, and even some of this black just washing over some of these areas, making it a little bit more subtle. A lot of the true white highlights in the beard is a little bit higher up. And that's actually kind of a note, like everything that I've been talking about up until this moment is really about like reference identification, you know, like understanding your reference truly. It's not all the same texture, so we're not going to use the same needles for all of it, you know. Identifying and separating all of these parts, like identify your contrast. Where is the true white? Where's your true black values? And so on, you know. And it's the same for all of these textures. And it really is the more that you can identify and understand areas in your reference, then the better work, whether that's painting or tattooing, you're able to produce. Because you have a true understanding of exactly what's going on. Like really think about how the hair is interacting with that skin layer which is sitting behind it. More of that smooth plane, and then the hair is your texture, you know, so you have a little bit of contrast. But yeah, the more you understand your reference and all of this artistic information, then the better you're going to be able to produce, like tattoo wise, painting wise, all of that. So it's really something to think about. And it is something that I heavily push with my Tattoo Academy members, is trying to get them to work on their artistic IQ. And one reference observation that I'm seeing here is for the lower part of the beard, it's like the area itself is very dark. And when we see the hair, that's in white highlights. So we're almost creating the negative hair for the lower or the very dense areas of the beard. And then as we get to the top area, the opposite is now true. So the skin itself is kind of lighter, and we're seeing the hair as a dark texture that's on top of the skin. So we're seeing these sharp little flicks that is done with a black ink. And then the dense area is the opposite. We're seeing and we're creating these negative pockets for like the white highlighted part of the hair to sit. And that's that area that I'm working on now, is the part of the upper beard where the hair is appearing like the black curls rather than that negative space. So just going through and starting like an early mapping stage for that. I'm not being too harsh. Like I don't jump to crazy decisions in tattooing. I really do like a little bit less is more, leaving room to touch the skin again and not jumping right to the edge of the beard. You can see I'm not like really confidently just putting in these the higher parts of the beard. I'm kind of easing my way up to that spot, making sure that that transition is super realistic. As the hairs do appear lighter, the higher they get. So I need to be using the right value and making sure that, yeah, all of this transition is looking really nice and natural. But like we talked about, how the stencil was really horrible for the beard, I was able to find the pockets that are giving me information in my stencil and kind of jump to those areas so I can be a little bit more confident with my actions. Even if I'm leaving random blank blocks below where I'm working, I can then really just drag and drop in that beard texture that I have. So that's all pretty easy. And that's something that I do like really think about as well, is I do find tattooing is a little bit like you acquire the skill to be able to tattoo different textures, what works for you and what you think looks accurate. And then you just start like just dragging and dropping in that texture into these areas, you know. But as a lot of my Tattoo Academy members know, I'm pretty cautious about textures and overthinking about it. I think that as artists, or even just being human, when you identify something in the reference, sometimes it's done a little bit too strong, whether that's a value or a sharpness. And sometimes a lot of textures, especially on portraits, when you decide to add a little bit of texture, or I guess like hyperrealism into it, sometimes it can look a little bit too scratchy or harsh, and then you focus on the texture too much and you've lost sight on what's really going on and what you're trying to achieve from this reference, or the portrait that you've picked as well, you know. And just so you guys are aware, once we pass the beard, I stop fast forwarding some of these sections, but I feel like the tattoos early on his neck and the beard, there was only so much information that you could really take in from seeing all of this, and like there's only so much I can really tell you guys about tattooing the beard. It's complicated, but it's simple when you have the right like strategy and stuff for getting through it. So I hope that I kind of shared enough of how I approach this area, and that you guys can take some of that information and apply it into your own tattooing there. And we have nearly completed the beard now. I'm just finishing up kind of inserting a bit of this texture, making sure that all of that detail is dense enough and all the pockets are all the right size. So kind of varying through my needles here, but it's all pretty much been done with the 7 round shader and the 9 curved mag at this point. And that is the 7 round shader doing a lot of the mapping work and also packing in for some of these smaller pockets of the hair there. And then going through after that stage with the 9 curved mag, really focusing on these larger blocks, pushing a little bit of that black over some of the areas. And now you can see the last stage of this beard, my final step, is using a 13 curved mag to really focus on that value that is sitting in my negative space that I've created. So I don't want to leave it all negative, it's going to be far too much white area, so I want a little bit of saturation in there, taking down the amount of highlights and things like that. So just thinking about what pockets I want to leave and what areas I want to be really dark. Obviously the more bottom area of the beard, making sure that there's a nice heavy shadow there, and that's going to add a lot of foundation to this portrait as well. Also using a mid-tone and a light value to brush some of that shadow from the beard up into what will be like the cheek and some of these areas, making sure that there's a really nice soft and realistic transition from where that beard is kind of fading up slowly there. Now before starting the mouth, I'm locking in a lot of this information and doing some of the early stages of kind of that moustache area and the hair all around the mouth. So just getting all of that locked in before I start focusing on the smoother planes and the smoother information there, which is obviously the lips, which hold a lot of these lighter values as well. So kind of still going with that dark to light process there. And now that I've locked in quite a bit of that information with the 7 round shader again, I'm going to go through with a 9 curved mag. That's going to allow me to really focus on the softness of the transitions here. I don't want to always be prioritizing my hard shadows, which in this case is the hair. I still want to think about these really nice soft gradients and transitions where all the forms start to come alive. So the edge of the mouth and all of these areas, I do prioritize the highlights and kind of, yeah, the softness and realistic touch of, yeah, the lips having that soft transition over, not being too much of a hard line. So I'm being careful here and using the right needle for that. Now this is the area that I'm kind of referencing as well. It's an area where I can see there's like true black there, but rather than rushing in with a round shader and creating any harsh edges or anything like that, I'm just getting in with that 9 curve mag, It's giving me a little bit of a softer edge, and it's leaving me options most importantly. If I get in with a round shader or a liner straight away, there's no options. I can never make that any sharper, and I can't make it smoother as well. I can't take back any permanent actions that I'm doing. That's why I really like this process, and you'll kind of see in my work, and I always talk about slowly like sculpting and having rough stages where you're working like your dark to light, and you're always refining things more and more. You're always leaving a little bit of room in the skin. You're not going straight in and packing things and damaging things too much. Sometimes you're sketching and you're mapping and you're just allowing everything to slowly come to life. Like every little pass that you do in the skin is just making that image more and more accurate to your reference. Now that I've sketched in a little bit of that early stages with my 9 curved mag to the mouth area, I can get in some of this definite black with a round shader there. Now it's good to prioritize this to be like an early pass because it's getting in that definite value with no variation. There's no smoothness or anything that I need to achieve in that area. It's identified as like, yeah, 100% black, and I can just go in and kind of put that in. And doing that straight away with a round shader, it makes sure that the area doesn't become overworked rather than focusing on sketching that out there. So that's kind of why I decided to take that action. And you can see these areas that were previously sketched out. Now I'm able to decide to run my round shader back into those areas where needed, and with the right amount of hand pressure there as well. So I'm not always being very harsh behind the needle. Sometimes there's harsh, more packing action, and other times I'm just allowing that to brush over the skin a little bit, creating either a gradient or a little bit of texture there, whatever I feel like I need to achieve. Now, if you can take anything away from this video, it will be this part right here, where I am using a mag and a light-ish value to map in the lips here. So I don't like using liners or round shaders for the lips because there's a lot of information going on that sometimes gets missed. As the lip kind of joins into that bottom lip there, where the lips connect, it's kind of like that lip has a much softer edge on the top of it. And then as it moves up to the top part, it's a little bit harsher, but I don't think it's ever a line. Like, that would be an extreme level of contrast. When you have a look at someone's face, like in real life, and that, it's not a line at all. It's not so sharp, you know. Perhaps a female portrait with like dark lipstick, maybe that's an option there. But yeah, for these like realistic portraits, yeah, it's something that I stay away from. And I guess a lot of my tattooing is me trying to achieve like an outstanding result through like smoothness and kind of less is more. I think it offers something to the viewer and the audience where it's like you're onto it enough to create these forms like the nose, the lips and stuff without getting a liner in there. Like everything is soft enough, but sharp enough to still be there and be as powerful as that form should be. But it's not overpowering, you know. No area is like stronger than the other. I'm not using a round shader on the lips, creating something that's overly sharp. And I'm not sure about this piece, but usually I won't even use a liner or round shader for knocking in like the black areas of the nostrils. I'll start off with a mag to create a softer edge there a little bit, and then I'll go back through with my definite black after. But I like things not being like ridiculously sharp, you know, and I think it's a really nice realistic result, and it's something that's really changed my work. I think it's made it slightly more unique, is just staying away from a huge level of sharpness, at least straight away, you know. I always have the option to go sharper if needed. But yeah, just aiming for a nice, soft, realistic portrait is really my goal. And I think I've really been nailing that recently. The hands is a little bit of a hard spot, I think, value-wise. It doesn't show like your best work, like maybe what you could do on the arm or on the leg, some of these better areas for portraits. But yeah, we still created a good result here, but I think some of my more recent work as well, has really been nailing that. If you have a look on my Instagram, I think some of my portrait work is really becoming like up there with the best in the country, you know, which is something that I'm definitely proud of, and just really working to keep excelling in that area. I still feel like there's a lot of room for improvement in all of my work, so that's exciting as well. You know, there's still a lot of room left in the journey, and I don't think as an artist that you ever really get to that finish line either, which, yeah, is pretty cool. So now you can see I'm working with a darker value and creating my level of sharpness that I want to see in this area, making sure that that shadow and that lip is like disappearing nicely into that little pocket there. And with this area well mapped, before I move on to my last kind of levels of saturating with my lighter values and things like that, I'm going through, now that I have like the general area pretty much complete, and mapped in there nicely, now I'm going in with a definite black. You can see it's still a 9 curved mag in this area, and really just working on how that black is transitioning, whether it's super harsh there, and just getting that right level of darkness in these areas as well. And it's definitely the right step to start off with a pass over this whole area with my 9 curve mag. Make sure I've touched like every spot with the 9 curve mag before deciding to commit with that round shader or round liner level of sharpness. So even though it's a 9 curved mag, it is offering me something smoother than what the liner or round shader can achieve, but it's still a very punchy curve mag, so you need to be pretty careful of that because it can create like harsh looking results there. It's not something that you really want to use for an extreme level of smoothness, as the needle is so small that there's not enough like resistance on the skin there. It's very easy to push 9 needles into the skin. In comparison to a 13 curve mag, it's going to be a lot smoother because you have so much more needle resistance there, and also more needles creating that softer curve on the mag itself. So you can see, yeah, still completing that level of shadow there, making sure that I'm, yeah, just achieving the right amount of darkness below that lip there. And one thing that I'd recommend as well is kind of like when you stare at your reference, just have like a little bit of a squint and you can see what information is really making up this portrait. You know, you can see your basic planes there of values. So you know that a lot of these areas, it's kind of undeniable information, and if you decide to ignore that, you're not going to create the same result as what your reference is giving you, all that information. And as I'm sure you guys will know from your own experience, like 9 curved mags, they're pretty unique. I don't want to say like it's a bad curve magnum, it's just unique, you know. It doesn't really act how you would like a curve magnum to act a lot of the times. Even I think, like, it's weird, but sometimes the 7 curve mag can be a little bit softer even, or maybe I'm just more careful with the 7 because I know it's smaller. But yeah, with the 9s, yeah, I need to be very careful at what I'm trying to achieve. I think sometimes the 13, even though it's too big for an area, is the right amount of smoothness, so it's the right needle to use. Like, I really try and prioritize things on just using the right tool. I don't very often try and make a needle do something that it doesn't naturally want to do, like trying to get a crazy result from something smooth, trying to create texture that way. Although I did used to use a 13 curve mag for like the whole tattoo. That was with the Quadrant 13, and they're really, really versatile because you can really grab just a few of those needles off the edge and line with it a lot better. These metric ones, they're a little bit too smooth. It's actually almost hard to create texture with them, which I think has been something positive for my work in general. So like I said, I'm using the metrix cartridges. It's pretty much all I use these days. There is other great brands, but if I can get everything from one brand and I'm happy with the quality, then I will do that. And I'm definitely enjoying them. And I think it's a positive thing. It might have been something that I've talked about before, but I'm enjoying having to use the right needle for the right job. In the past, I could do a tattoo with one needle, or 2 or 3, but now I find there's always at least 4 out, which I think is a good thing, you know, just always using the right tool for the job, rather than trying to overuse any needles. But you have to be aware. I still think it's nice to have, like, just like in painting, it's nice to have a limited palette, because then everything comes together and really looks like one clean image, because it's all done with the same tool or the same values, you know. So I think when you are tattooing, to be aware on what needles are going to do what, and how to make sure that your image still looks like everything is all just done with kind of like one, like it's all just one coherent image. All the information is all coherent, and yes, things aren't separated from each other by becoming too textured and standing out, which can sometimes happen when you're using, like with the difference from a 13 curve mag and a 7 round shader. It's a huge difference. So yeah, you need to be aware of that and use them, I guess, appropriately, because I would hate to touch the skin and create anything that is just far too sharp or far too dark in that area compared to everything being so punchy. So I try and really think about that. And while you're watching this, you guys should let me know down in the comments what your favorite cartridges are. It would be really interesting to see everyone's favorite configurations, and maybe include the volts that your guys using for that cartridge, so we can get an idea on what's happening on the skin. I'm sure there would be like a common few, like maybe the 13 curve mag. People love 5 round liners as well. That's been my go-to. When I started tattooing, I would do like the whole tattoo with a 5 round liner, because I love the detail. And I think if that's your opinion and how you're feeling, your work would probably benefit from switching from the 5 round liner to a 13 curve mag being your main needle. Because if your main focus is the detail, it's almost better that you use a smoother tool, because you're still going to try and achieve and appreciate all that detail. But if that's the main thing that you're focusing on, and you're using a really sharp, detailed, almost scratchy cartridge like the 5 round liner, then your work could be looking very, very noisy, you know, and noisy in a way of sharpness, that kind of visual noise. Now, as you can see, we kind of started that early mapping stage for the nose and moving up into this eye area. The lip and that lower portion is all pretty much 90% complete. But as you can see from the camera angle, it's a bit hard to capture this eye and all of what's going on. I found reviewing this footage that my hand was kind of either in the way or the machine was fully in the way like this, making it all a bit blurry. So I've decided just to speed this section up. But like always, I don't like to include like both of the eyes fully in the video. So we'll just kind of speed up this part, and then we'll take the other eye in full detail, and I'll make sure to explain a little bit of what's going on, as well as my thought process there for all of you guys. It kind of saves a bit of time in the video too, not fully talking about two of the same kind of forms, you know. My videos are already long enough as it is, but I appreciate everyone's patience and support there. It's been good. As you guys will know, I actually just dropped that vlog video like yesterday, but I have been working on this video as well. So it was nice to drop that video fairly quickly and just like get a little bit of interaction with you guys again, you know. It's great to hear from everyone in the comments again, and just realize that, you know, people do actually want and need this information. So it really gave me a good push to be like, no, I'm just gonna lock back into this. Try go hard again, you know. I got a lot on my plate, but yeah, here we are. So moving into this eye, I'm starting off with an early mapping stage, but since this is all soft forms, now think of the skin on the face. It's almost like a silk blanket that is just draped over a skull, you know. So there's not a lot of crazy like depths or like canyons sitting in the skin. Everything is all like a millimeters game, you know. There's slight little divots, but even then it's like soft around the eyes. It takes a very crazy kind of high contrast image on an elderly portrait, yes, you have like a little bit of harshness in these wrinkles, but this is still all soft. So leading up to it, think of all of the skin of what we're tattooing for what it is, you know. It's a pretty thick like blanket. It's all one piece. Everything is nice and smooth leading up to the forms, you know. So try not to have your values and all of this too like separate, you know. Think of this as all the same material, it's all the same texture. Even though we're moving up to the eyes, I see people straight away, they jump to small needle groupings, or they're like, oh, the eye's coming up, now I'm going to go to my round shader for the eyelids and stuff like that, and put on these crazy divots around the eyes. The texture's just overboard and stuff like that. So try to softly put things in with a mag. And why do we use a mag? Because it offers the most needle resistance, ensuring that whatever we do with this needle is going to be nice and smooth. Also using the whitewash as I do, it is a little bit smoother than the grey wash. People always ask like, oh, what is whitewash? Maybe just stop and Google that, you know. It's a set, so you can buy it just like a grey wash. I guess if you start with black and grey tattooing, you know, you kind of start using washing down your black in a percentage or a drop system. And then if you want to improve that, you can find a pre-mixed drop set that you like in a grey wash. And if you want to improve this again, I believe that the whitewash is just undefeated. It is a great product. It is still black and grey tattooing. It is definitely not opaque. But the results that you get are a little bit smoother, like softer. Tones don't really overwork. You can't really turn a mid-tone into something super dark or black, you know, or as easy as you can with a grey wash. But yeah, here we are anyway. Just talk about this eye a little bit before it all disappears and I just talk this whole video away. I am using my 7 round shader. It is a great needle for like definite values, you know. The eye here is very dark, so it's a very definite value. There's no real complications or crazy gradients going on. So it's going to put something in very nice and solid, something that is going to last as a heel. And most importantly, it's going to put it in quite efficiently and fast. So it's doing little trauma for the amount that it's packing, you know. There's still a little bit of room in the skin. Like I could lightly push my mag just straight over everything that I've just worked, and it wouldn't overwork it if I was being a bit careful, you know. And that's an action that I might have to take soon, where I need to saturate around the pupil of the eye there. I'm not really too strict on where that mag goes. I'm more just a little bit gentle if I know I'm working next to an area where I have packed, especially quite heavily, trying to achieve a solid black pack. Now, just starting off with a mid-tone, some of these values and edges were a little bit more definite than normal, so I'm just doing a little bit of mapping here and then jumping back into my mags, making sure that nothing is too harsh, especially as we get, I guess, away from that nose area. Our shadows and forms, it all starts to soften up a little bit, but definitely closer into the corner of the eye there. There is some nice dark value sitting in that area, as it is like, yeah, mainly a shadow spot. So just starting to build and place my values into the right area for all of these planes and forms. Getting that basic structure, and then I can start refining and really bringing the area to life. And I'll just talk a little bit about what I've been up to as well. Obviously, the Tattoo Academy and all of those members, I'm making sure to give them a lot of my time and really find ways to individually help all of these people out. Although there's a lot of stuff that I guess is made for the bulk when I make the courses and maybe some of the interactions, but every artist, as you can imagine, all has individual kind of strengths and weaknesses, and also visions on where they want to end up. So it's been really interesting working with all of these individuals and trying to improve their work is just my overall goal. And I think, especially from our coaching calls, I'm sure the members will be watching this and they will agree that the coaching calls have been probably the most like powerful things for their tattoo careers and really like finding themselves as artists and also improving, you know. There's been such a wide range of, I guess, areas in their lives where I've offered my opinion, you know, and I think it's just had a really good impact for all of them. So I'm really stoked with that. I've also been working on my oil painting a lot. I think that's improved dramatically. I would say like a 50% increase, you know, there, while I've been working on my last painting. I've also helped a few other local artists, local in New Zealand. There's been a bit of distance there. They're not all from like local my area, but just helping some other artists when they've come for guest spots to lock in with their oil painting work. That's been really good as well. It's always great to help out other people. And yeah, obviously I've seen that improvement in my own work from doing these little studies with them. So I think I've done one or two new study paintings, and then I've also finished up my main piece of work. All of it's monochrome, so just black and white, but I'm doing that as like kind of as my own decision to not like try and run before I can walk, you know, just being a little bit humble with the respect. I haven't got thousands of hours painting oil, so I want to limit the problems that I run into. And although I have painted full color in the past with oil paints, I think it's really good to just focus on brush application and a rough value. You know, I'm not controlling chroma, like all the hue of all these colors and making it all like a coherent, amazing painting. I'm just focusing on black and gray, and it's really nice. It's a great way to work, and it is a video that I'll be posting to the Tattoo Academy members as well, kind of like a painting brief. I think that's the video that I'm going to be working on next for everyone over there, because I do think oil painting is like the key to being a good tattoo artist, you know. There's been no medium that has improved my work like oil painting has. I'm sure the Tattoo Academy guys are sick of hearing that as well, but yeah, like the proof's in the pudding there for sure. And since I've finished up my main painting that I've been working on, it's been like almost 100 hours or something of working on it. It's that Virgin Mary piece. If you haven't seen it, it is over on my Instagram. And soon I'll have the finished product photos over there, and I can send it off to both the framers to get the original frame and also get it photographed for prints. So there will be prints available for sale soon, I can imagine, you know, within the month. So keep an eye out on my Instagram. It is a very sick piece, and overall I'm really looking to extend the series of what I'm doing, so it's kind of that, like, I guess like biblical and maybe some Saint Michael stuff, and like one of the people in the image will be like tattooed over their body. So yeah, it's quite a unique, and like it gets you thinking, you know, staring at these pieces. And this painting in particular that was finished, like it became a little bit relevant to everything that was going on in my life, and like a bit of like my story as the piece started getting complete, which was quite it was just interesting, you know. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to completing the series a little bit more. Maybe try and get like 10 to 15 paintings finished that are all in theme, and then hold like a gallery night. I think as an artist, especially growing up, it was always such a high priority. Like if you're an artist, then you have like a gallery night, especially like a solo exhibition or something. In my head, that was like, I don't know the word, like the main goal for every artist is you just have a gallery night and it's amazing, you know? So it would be cool to make that happen. It's always been a huge goal of mine, but it might be years away still. But I can see it lining up, like I'm on the right path to make that happen, and I'm really giving painting a lot more attention and effort these days. So I'm looking forward to that. And these next paintings that I want to do, like I want these paintings to start getting a little bit bigger. I don't recommend for people to start painting huge, because I think it's just different. It's not easier or worse, but if you paint small, sometimes it's a little bit harder, and it's good if you can paint at a difficult size without using too smaller brushes, and just building up knowledge, you know. I think there's a big difference. There's like learning, and then there's trying to create something amazing. And I think because of social media and everything, like, we just want to create amazing products. We don't want to learn and study anymore, you know, which I think is a huge problem. And I always recommend for people to really identify the action that they're doing is learning right now. It's not about creating an amazing outcome. I want you to run into as many problems as you can within the next hour of this exercise, you know? And then that's when learning happens. It doesn't happen when you're trying to fake creating an amazing result and you kind of know how to do like maybe one thing with painting or tattooing a little bit, and you just keep replicating that because you think it's working well, rather than doing what is really necessary or the proper technique, you know? But now back to the tattoo. So I'm using my 23 curved mag, and I'm really focusing on these larger planes now, and also some lighter values. When I'm using this mag in particular, it really is not just about completing a value in that area, but also completing a level of saturation within the piece. So I'm really focusing on this like heavily shaded area, that pocket of the corner of the eye there, and starting to build up all of these planes and gradients around there, and just getting, like I said, that basic level of saturation. So you can see right now this is like an extra light value, so it's hardly a value that's there at all. I think of it more as just like a level of saturation, you know. It's just a neutral value. It's not something that's lying in a shadow or anything like that. The value is just there. It's not, yeah. And then working up into the eyebrow, just starting this off with some mag work, and I can really refine and bring that level of sharpness back into it. And one thing I've really picked up on from watching myself tattoo is I think the accuracy to find an approximate value is really good, and it allows me to just get moving fast, you know. There's not too much hesitation at all. I look at the area, I find the approximate value, so definitely not the darkest that's in the area or the lightest, you know. Kind of leaning to that mid-tone approximate in the area or slightly darker, and then I just start smashing that into the skin, you know. It allows for not too much hesitation, but you're building form and these planes up really fast because you have the approximate value. You can be really confident with it because you know it's not the darkest value in the area. So later on you come back in and put in that black or the extra dark, and you don't overwork it in a way where it starts to run to your negative space or into a value of extra light. You know, you keep that for all your values to be very true and accurate there. I think it's really helped me create much more accurate values by not overworking my black and jumping straight into an area with my darkest value, because yeah, like I always say, it's just decisions that you really can't take back. It's very easy when you have black in your cartridge to just overwork it and think, oh, I can just be a little bit lighter handed and dust that in. I do think you can make a black value look borderline extra light if you're very careful, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think just like cartridges and all of that, just the right value for the right place. The more you paint, like the more you'll understand this of that process on when you start painting. It's not about refining at first. It's about the action of really just putting the paint on the canvas, almost just leaving it in the loose brush stroke, and then you start to go back through and connect these values, work on gradients, and refine things a little bit more. If you are finding that you're lacking process and things like that in your tattooing, or maybe you try and write down things I say, but it's not really hitting and it's not really sticking, then yeah, that really means that you need to start this oil painting, or even just drawing for yourself. I do have some drawing exercises as well on the Real Tattoo Academy, which I think really help people build their own structure, you know, because like none of this is about so much doing what I say. Like, yes, it works for me and it may work for other people, which is like great, and that is what I want. But I do want to lead people into the very honest path of becoming their own artist, you know? And it will happen naturally no matter what, but you can really speed this up by picking up a paintbrush, by picking up a pencil, and creating some simple, like clean looking artwork. I think that's where you find your own systems that you then bring back into tattooing. So it's not like oil painting, all of a sudden you start doing it and your tattoos will look like oil painting. Like, that won't happen, but you'll get processes with your paintings and you'll say, okay, I really like how I work through this area. I'm going to start bringing this back into my tattooing, until you do enough paintings and enough tattoo work that it's all just like, it just happens like subconsciously, and you're just creating it all that way. I do think that's another bad thing of tattooing. For some weird reason, it doesn't take very long for tattoo artists to stop thinking while they're tattooing. I'm sure majority of people who are watching this will agree that when they tattoo, they don't really think, they just get the tattoo done. There's not artistic decisions going on like there is with painting, and even with my level of painting or tattooing, I can't help but overthink and run into problems when I'm oil painting. Like, I'd say I'm running into far less problems now with my painting than I was at the start, but with tattooing, there's never a problem at all. But and there's like, a lot of the time there's not a lot of thinking. I have to force myself to be thinking, to be making artistic decisions, to be improving areas of my reference and stuff. But naturally, I could very easily go to work and just completely zone out. Like, I was quite sick like a week ago, but I knew I didn't have to take any days off because I can like tattoo with my eyes closed, and it was like I was feeling super sick, but I just knew I just had to sit there, and the tattoos got done, and they were still, yeah, great tattoos. So it was quite like eye-opening to realize, like, yeah, this. So do your future self a favor. Buy a pencil, buy a paintbrush today, you know, buy some paint. You can figure this all out on YouTube as well. You don't have to wait for my video to drop on the subject. You don't have to even join the Real Tattoo Academy. You know, you can figure this out on your own. If you want to start painting, it's very easy to find out the basic tools that you need. My main recommendation that I will give to you for completely free is start with a monochrome painting and only use flat brushes at first. So buy maybe like a 4 and an 8 flat paintbrush. And the price and the quality of these brushes don't really matter. Like, when I started painting, I used the cheapest stuff I could find. I was getting my paintbrushes from $2 shops, and I just wouldn't even clean them. I just like throw them out. But that's not what you should do. You shouldn't waste material. But and the best thing is with oil painting is you can buy gesso and paint it on absolutely anything. It's almost like a primer. Even if I buy a board that's already gessoed, I'll just whack a brush layer on there to make sure there's a good amount. It really helps to pull the paint off the brush, and it makes sure that that oil doesn't seep out. Like, if you just paint on paper, all the oil will seep out of the paint and kind of separate what that's supposed to do. And also, it's easy. Like, if you don't want to do all that, then you just buy a piece of paper and a pencil. Oh, but where I was going with the gesso stuff is you can also gesso paper, which is great for your little studies, you know? Yep, that's it. That's all. I'm not going to talk about painting anymore. Let's talk about tattooing. Let's crack up, because like the tattoo in the channel is all about tattooing, and I've just been talking about painting for ages. It'd be like going somewhere and just getting a service that you really didn't ask for. Like, you go to the dentist and they give you new tires or something. Then again, that's pretty good too. If that is what's happened, and you've just got some free tires from watching this video, you know, like, you've gained knowledge in something else. So that's cool. I'm not taking this back. I'm not taking my actions back of spending so long talking about painting. It's a gift, and you should embrace this gift. Anyway, here we are using the white. So I really like to use a 7 round shader because I think it is a really solid cartridge. It deposits a lot of ink. It's not so scratchy. I think white should be limited. I don't really like to mag it around too much anymore. I prefer just these small little hits. Although sometimes it looks great, like magging the white and stuff, it's kind of just like, where do you stop? Do I want my tattoos to be fully saturated like that? Not really. I want it to still look a little bit like a tattoo and have a little bit of that skin left in the area, that negative space. And just picking out some high priority areas where I want both the viewer to look and where I want that white to sit, because it's going to draw a little bit of attention in to the eye of whoever's looking at it. So just putting it into these important areas, mostly just the eyes and the lips, and then I kind of let that like branch out slightly from these areas, so you won't see the white being too far away from these main areas. And quite often not even below the portrait, because obviously that neck area is there's gonna be a lot of shadows there from the head that's cast onto the neck and below, and there's nothing really too high in priority. Alright, I'll explain more on this shortly, but my client actually had to go and I wasn't really aware of that, so that's why we're kind of jumping to the white before this piece is finished, because we're actually going to come back to this tomorrow. So we can have a look now at the result of day 1 of tattooing.
Alright, so we ended the session there. I guess that's the reality of tattooing. He had to shoot to do something with his family, so that's all good, you know. The tattoo can always get done at another time, although for the video purposes it would be a lot better to get that all smashed out. He is also booked for tomorrow. Originally we were going to do something else, so my plan starting today was to just smash this out no matter how long it took, but he wanted to use numbing cream, so we wasted at least an hour waiting for that to all kick in. Yeah, which wasted a lot of time during our day in the tattoo session. So he said that he'll let me know how he's feeling in the morning. Obviously doing a hand, continuing on the second day, is going to be pretty sore. So that's really all up to him. If he shows up, then that'll be my plan, is just to smash it out and finish that hand like, oh well, it's just a bit of pain, you know? Or it'll be a lot of pain actually, but that's all good. And then maybe we can go into something else or just finish that day earlier. But ideally, yeah, get this piece done tomorrow so we're getting that one photo of it all at the same stage of healed. But worst case scenario, we'll just get back to that in another few weeks. But that's all good. Like I said, like I'm really just showing you guys the reality of the tattoo artist, you know, like I'm not planning pieces specifically for these YouTube videos. It's just every so often when I think something's cool, I'll just decide to film it. And I guess showing some of these scenarios where you are kind of continuing the next day or things not going to plan is a huge reality for all other tattoo artists as well. So it's something we can all relate to. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the morning and hopefully we're finishing off this hand.
All right, bro. I'll start with just mapping it out, because then I can use the spray after that. So then we'll be away, bro.
Yeah, safe, do your thing. We don't have to do too much over the yesterday's stuff.
Nah.
We're away, we're all good.
All right, here we go. Day 2 on the same hand. So back-to-back sessions. I can't say I've ever done this before or ever really want to do it again. But you know, to be honest, my client said that it wasn't too bad this day and that the first day actually hurt worse. And sometimes that is the case for tattooing 2 days in a row. I find on the second day, your body's just really relaxed and used to the feeling. Like the first day is all like foreign ground and pretty sore. But second day seems to be better. Even this week, actually, I had 3 days back to back on the same client. And oh no, they actually said that was pretty sore, but yeah, they sat through it anyway. But yeah, so like I said, I'm just going to map out all of this area, And then I very quickly want to get some bactine on the skin just to help my client out in any way that we can, especially with having some of this tattooing that is now almost 24 hours into the healing, you know. So a little bit of bactine will go a long way on making this a little bit more comfortable for my client. So just going through and mapping in what I can, mapping in Nipsey's braids here, and then starting to pack in that black there. It's all a very simple area, like it's kind of all very definite. All the hard work has definitely been done in yesterday's session. I think even I could have had this piece finished up within that day if the bro didn't have to leave early, but that's all good. I was very stoked that he was able to come back in the next day and finish it up. I'm pretty lucky that he had booked 2 days in anyway. So yeah, just going through with my 7-round shader. This area on the edge of the hand, like the other hand tattoo that I have up on YouTube, I really like to try and smash things in these areas. So like, although a mag could fit in here, the 7-round shader is a much punchier needle, which is going to lead to a much better heal for this area as we get closer to the edge of the hand there. Yeah, especially because I'm using the Bishop shader, which is a 3.5mm stroke, for a punchier effect, whether that's into tougher skin or anything like that. I definitely need my cartridge to make up for that hit that isn't quite there in the machine. Now 3.5 is still like punchy enough by all means, but naturally the Bishop packer is obviously a little bit more punchy into the skin there. So I'm still just working on that solid structure of the braid there, making sure that it's all really well packed. I definitely don't skip or try and speed up any of these tattoo fundamentals like packing in any area. I think there's just a level that you need to be achieving and what's acceptable for your client there, making sure that you're really doing everything you can to give the best healed result. Really always thinking about, you know, your actions and how that's going to heal. And the more care you take in these early stages, like giving yourself a very solid foundation to work off, it really makes for easier steps later on down the road, you know. So after I've got all of this like real fundamental basic kind of form and all of these values really blocked in there, it makes the later stages of like shading around and adding in some detail and some smaller kind of like little hits of like realism. It just makes those steps so much easier when this the foundation of everything that you're working off is really solid, and there's no like even needing to touch back into this area at all. So I can work on everything outside of the solid form, becoming more realistic and also transitioning in and out from this solid block. So I'm using that mag here now to do that, to put these small strands in, finishing off that kind of start of the braid there, and then using that mid-tone to be the true value that's really going to push out a little bit further than that black, so that that's transitioning all really well and smooth. And it's really just using a mix of all your tools in areas like this, because there's quite a bit going on. You can see I'm using my mag to get in this like base value that's like highly saturating the area and getting the nice like blocked in form. But now here I'm using my round liner to get in these individual strands of hair that are making up that braid there. And then going back, kind of mixing up, making sure that I've got the right level of sharpness there. Using my mag for some of this blurrier stuff up the top. And also a little bit above that braid as well, just helping that realistic kind of like disappearing back a little bit there on the top of the braid. So finishing up some of the sharp detail, some of these small hairs, and it's really just like when I talk about hits of realism, that's what I'm talking about, like random little actions, you know. It's like the inconsistency and randomness of realism, like having no real form or structure there. Sometimes when you think about something too much, you can like accidentally create like quite a nice looking like pattern almost, you know. So yeah, you want to stay away from things like that, especially with realism. And now we're onto the ear, And I always think that it's an area that really shouldn't like pull attention away from the portrait. It's obviously sitting very close to the face at all times. So you don't want to add too much sharpness to it, leave too much negative space in the area. You just want it to be pushed back, really not taking any attention away from the portrait. And quite often it is an area that's almost like left till last or something. But I find, you want a lot of the edges on the ear, because it is true, to be very like rolled over and soft. Although sometimes you can see some hard edges in the reference, just try and soften everything a little bit. Too much sharpness in this area, even just on the edges of shadows, it draws attention. Like sharpness grabs the eye. A nice blurry kind of form, having the right structure and stuff, it will really sit there nice and subtly. And the ear is really one of those forms that you can learn so much from if you just sit down and draw them. I think if you're an artist who ends up tattooing a lot of portraits, it's really important to sit down and draw a few of these forms of the face a few times. Grab some from different images. I've recommended to the Tattoo Academy members in one of the courses there, basically to grab a few samples of images they like and varying like face positions and expressions, and then drawing like the eye from this one, the nose from that one, the mouth from the other, and just really thinking about the form while you are drawing that. Because like I said earlier, I think when we're tattooing, we're really not thinking too artistically a lot of the time, and you need to force yourself to be thinking a little bit more like that, and taking the right actions to really improve your tattooing, which I do think really comes from artwork and learning that happens outside of tattooing, really. Alright, now I'm on to the last stage of this portrait, and for this top part of the area, I really don't want to drop back down into tattooing on top of any of the areas that I touched yesterday, although I kind of saw a few areas that I would have liked to have touched a little bit. It's obviously just best for the heel to really stay away from all of those areas. You kind of have to. But that is pretty much the end of our session here. So we'll have a look at our finished result, and I hope that everyone really enjoyed the video there.
Alright, we did it. We managed to get the bro's hand finished, so that was solid for him to come back on the second day and let me finish that up for him. I hope that you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.